the polling on immigration is much more right wing, it seems, than you would guess from how Le Pen and Zemmour do in elections, right? There's really hostility to immigration in public opinion, but it doesn't see. It seems the issue underperforms in elections. Is that right? And why do you think that is?
Yes, yes, yes. The French public opinion has been for years, I mean, in fact, for decades, like very strongly opposed to immigration. And you're right that this is not reflected in the electoral performance of Le Pen, in the past, and both Le Pen and Zemmour. But look, that's because it's not the only. I was going to say that's what many people say, and certainly there's some truth to this. Is that immigration, although it is important, and most people in France are strongly opposed to it, is not the only issue. People care about other stuff like the economy, etc. And I agree, this is true. This is part of the explanation, but I don't think it's the main explanation. The main explanation, in my opinion, is because people are not ideologues. People don't vote based on ideology primarily. Primarily, people vote based on what social groups they most strongly identify with, and what's the perception of the different candidates in those social groups.
So what does Macron represent sort of to the masses of France? Because from outside, he looks sort of like the elite candidate. Do people associate him that way?
Well,
and is that who people want to associate with?
many people do, but Macron, people to a large extent, some people do, but most people are going to vote for Macron in the second round, are not going to vote for Macron. They're going to vote against Le Pen, which is not the same thing.
Okay. He's just a placeholder. He's just not the evil person.
He doesn't, he is perceived as the elite thing, but he's also perceived as not being Le Pen, which is the primary reason why people voted for him in the second round, or are going to vote for him in the second round.
So Le Pen is seen as sort of the person of, low class, racist, uneducated people.
Yeah, exactly. And an extremist, an experience I've had several times, and that many people have talked about this to many people, and they've had similar experiences, is that you talk, for instance, to an old person in France, to a grandmother, and you talk to her about immigration, and she starts saying stuff that Le Pen would never say. But when I say would never say, I don't mean would never say publicly. I mean, she doesn't even think that stuff that radical. Like, they're like 1,000 times more racist than Le Pen is. So as they say that stuff, racist, I think it's a misnomer here, but you know what I mean. And so they say that stuff, and then you're like, oh, so you're going to vote for Le Pen. And they look at you, genuinely horrified that you would suggest such a thing, Me voting for Le Pen, I will never do that. I'm not an extremist, Only fascists vote for Le Pen. This is something we just explained to you, that if she had her way, she'd send back all the immigrants and their descendants, and like, if it doesn't work, we may have to kill some, I'm exaggerating, but it's something like that, not that much. So that's what I mean when I say that people vote primarily not based on ideology, but based on which kind of social groups, who as a person and a social group they identify with, and how they perceive that that kind of person votes, And they don't perceive themselves as extremists, but they perceive the Le Pen vote as an extremist vote.